Picture this, 1932, Western Australia. The world is grappling with the Great Depression, but down under, Australia is facing a different kind of crisis. It wasn't a financial crash or a political upheaval, but a war. Not against another country, not against a fearsome beast, but against a bird, the enemy, the emu. This wasn't a war in the traditional sense, with grand battles and cunning strategies. It was a bizarre, almost comical conflict that has since become known as the Great Emu War. The emu, a flightless bird native to Australia, is an impressive sight. Standing nearly 6 feet tall and weighing close to 100 pounds, they are like feathered giants roaming the outback. These birds are tough, resilient, and possess a surprising turn of speed when they need it. Normally, emus keep to themselves, foraging for food and minding their own business, but something had changed. The balance of nature had been disrupted, and the emus were at the heart of the problem. After World War I, Australia faced a new challenge, a surplus of veteran farmers. The government, eager to accommodate these returning heroes, encouraged them to take up land and cultivate wheat. What they didn't anticipate was the impact this would have on the emu population. The emus, naturally drawn to these new and abundant food sources, began to congregate in large numbers, devouring crops and damaging fences. The farmers, already struggling with the economic hardships of the time, found themselves facing a feathered foe that threatened their livelihoods. After the horrors of World War I, Australia, like many nations, faced the challenge of reintegrating its returning soldiers into civilian life. Many of these veterans, seeking a peaceful existence after years of conflict, were drawn to the promise of land and a fresh start in the vast Australian outback. The government, eager to accommodate these heroes and boost agricultural production, offered them parcels of land with the encouragement to cultivate wheat. It seemed like a perfect solution, a chance for these men to heal and rebuild their lives. Little did they know, however, that their new battle was just beginning, albeit against a most unexpected enemy. The vast open fields that were once home to kangaroos and wallabies were about to become the stage for a conflict unlike any seen before. The emus, those large, flightless birds that had roamed Australia for centuries, saw an opportunity in the farmers' endeavours. The newly planted wheat fields, stretching as far as the eye could see, represented an all-you-can-eat buffet for these feathered foragers. Word seemed to spread quickly through the emu population. An endless bounty awaited in these human-made fields. What started as a minor nuisance quickly escalated into a full-blown crisis. Emus, by the thousands, descended upon the farmers' fields, devouring crops, trampling seedlings, and tearing down fences with their powerful legs. The farmers watched in dismay as their hard work and dreams were literally devoured by these feathered invaders. Faced with mounting losses and the very real threat of financial ruin, the farmers knew they had to act. But how do you fight an enemy that seems to multiply by the day and shows no fear of humans? Their shotguns, effective against rabbits and foxes, seemed almost useless against the emus' size and tenacity. Desperate, the farmers turned to the government for help, demanding action against the emu scourge. They had risked their lives for their country in the war, and now, they argued, their livelihoods were under attack by a new, feathered enemy. Their pleas fell on sympathetic ears, for the government recognized the gravity of the situation and the potential economic disaster looming. The farmers' pleas did not go unheeded. The Australian government, eager to demonstrate support for their veteran farmers and protect the nation's wheat supply, took the unusual step of, well, declaring war. Not on a foreign power, mind you, but on the emu. The decision was made to send in the troops, literally. The responsibility fell upon the shoulders of Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery. Armed with Lewis machine guns, weapons that had proven effective in the trenches of World War I, Major Meredith and his men were tasked with the mission of culling the emu population, population, and driving the feathered fiends from the farmers' fields. The First Assault, a comedy of errors, the stage was set for a confrontation unlike any other in military history. In early November 1932, Major Meredith and his men, accompanied by a cameraman to document their valiant efforts, arrived in the Campion district of Western Australia, ready to engage the enemy. The Emus, it turned out, were not easily intimidated. The soldiers' initial attempts to engage the Emus proved to be more comical than combat-ready. The Emus, seemingly unfazed by the sound of gunfire, scattered in all directions when fired upon, making them difficult targets. The Lewis guns, designed for mowing down lines of enemy soldiers, were ill-suited for picking off individual birds sprinting through the bush. Emu evasion, humiliating defeat for the soldiers. To the soldiers' dismay, the Emus displayed an uncanny ability to evade their would-be captors. They seemed to possess an almost supernatural awareness of the soldiers' movements, dodging bullets with an agility that would have impressed even the most seasoned soldier. The newspapers, initially enthusiastic about the government's decisive action, began to report on the military's struggles with a mix of amusement and disbelief. The headlines, once proclaiming war on emus and troops to fight bird pests, now mocked the soldiers' inability to defeat their feathered foes. A change in tactics. If you can't beat them, ambush them. Major Meredith, a man not easily deterred, decided a new approach was needed. Open warfare, it seemed, was not the answer. The emus were simply too wily, too unpredictable for traditional military tactics. It was time to abandon the battlefield and embrace a more cunning approach, the ambush. The soldiers, taking cover among the trees and bushes that dotted the landscape, would lie in wait, hoping to catch the emus off guard. The element of surprise they believed would be their greatest weapon. The emus, however, seemed to possess an almost sixth sense when it came to avoiding danger. They would approach a seemingly safe patch of ground only to veer away at the last minute, leaving the soldiers hidden in the bushes, feeling like they were playing a losing game of hide and seek. In a moment of desperation, or perhaps sheer absurdity, someone came up with the idea of using a train to chase down the emus. Yes, you read that right, a train. The image of a steam locomotive billowing smoke and clanging its bell in hot pursuit of a flock of giant birds is certainly a memorable one. The plan involved mounting a Lewis gun on the back of a flatbed train carriage and driving the train alongside the emus, hopefully mowing them down with a hail of bullets. The emus, however, were unimpressed with this display of mechanized might. They simply ran alongside the train for a while, then veered off into the bush, leaving the soldiers on board feeling like they were part of a bizarre, low-budget action film. As the war dragged on and the emus continued to evade capture and decimate crops, the public and the press began to take notice. The story of the Great Emu War, as it was now being called, spread like wildfire, making headlines not just in Australia but around the world. The government, initially supportive of the military intervention, now found itself facing mounting criticism. The opposition parties seized on the opportunity to ridicule the government's handling of the situation, with one politician famously declaring in Parliament, "Is it any wonder that these emus laugh at our soldiers?" The emus, it seemed, had become a symbol of the government's incompetence, and the joke, everyone agreed, was on them. By December 1932, after weeks of futile efforts, mounting criticism and a dwindling supply of ammunition and patience, the Australian government decided to call off the Great Emu War. Major Meredith, his men and their temperamental Lewis guns were recalled from the front lines, leaving the emus to claim victory in this bizarre battle of man versus bird. The retreat was not exactly a proud moment for the Australian military. Newspapers, both at home and abroad, had a field day with the story, depicting the soldiers as bumbling fools outsmarted by a bunch of birds. The Great Emu War, it seemed, was destined to become a footnote in history, a cautionary tale about the perils of underestimating the enemy, even if that enemy is a flightless bird with a penchant for wheat. a public reckoning, laughter, ridicule, and a touch of shame. The aftermath of the Great Emu War was met with a mixture of amusement, disbelief, and a healthy dose of national embarrassment. The image of Australian soldiers armed with machine guns being outmaneuvered by flocks of emus was simply too good for the press to resist. Cartoons depicting emus wearing military helmets and dodging bullets with ease became a common sight in newspapers. Even within the government, there was a sense of sheepishness. The decision to deploy the military against the emus, which had seemed like a good idea at the time, now appeared rash and ill-conceived. The Great Emu War became a political football, with the opposition using it to highlight the government's incompetence and the absurdity of the entire situation. The emus, for their part, seemed unfazed by the attention and the dubious honor of having waged war on a nation. They continued to roam the countryside, their numbers seemingly undiminished by the military's efforts. In a way, the Great Emu War could be seen as a symbolic victory for nature's resilience, a reminder that even in the face of human ingenuity and technological might, the natural world has a way of fighting back. The farmers, while relieved that the emu threat had subsided somewhat, were still left to deal with the damage to their crops and livelihoods. The government, chastened by the experience, implemented a bounty system, encouraging civilians to hunt emus and collect a reward for each bird killed. While this proved to be more effective than the military intervention, it was a far cry from the decisive victory they had hoped for. The Great Emu War, despite its rather grand title, was, in essence, a colossal failure for the Australian government. It stands today as a testament to the unpredictable nature of the wild and the dangers of underestimating one's opponent, even if that opponent happens to be a flightless bird with a taste for wheat. Yet despite its inglorious outcome, the story has endured, becoming a part of Australian folklore, a tale told and retold with a mixture of amusement and bewilderment. It's hard not to chuckle at the image of soldiers armed with weapons designed for trench warfare, stalking through the Australian outback in pursuit of birds that seem to vanish into thin air. The emus, in their own way, had exposed the folly of human arrogance, demonstrating that nature, even in its most comical forms, is not to be trifled with. Beyond the humour and the absurdity, the Great Emu War offers some valuable lessons. It serves as a stark reminder of the delicate balance between humans and the natural world. The emus, after all, were not the aggressors in this conflict. They were simply following their instincts, seeking food and survival in a landscape that had been altered by human actions. The war also highlighted the limitations of technology and military might when confronted with the unpredictable forces of nature. The soldiers, armed with their Lewis guns, were ill-equipped to deal with the emus' speed, agility, and sheer tenacity. It was a humbling experience, to say the least, for those involved. The Great Emu War, though a uniquely Australian event, speaks to a universal theme, the ongoing struggle between humanity and the natural world. It's a story that has been told and retold throughout history, from ancient myths and legends to modern-day environmental conflicts. What sets the Emu War apart, however, is its sheer absurdity, its ability to make us laugh at ourselves and our often misguided attempts to control the uncontrollable. In the annals of history, the Great Emu War may not rank among the most significant or consequential events. But as a cautionary tale, a humorous anecdote, and a testament to the resilience of nature, it holds a special place in our collective imagination.